Hello, and welcome to Everybody Eats, a Washington Wizards podcast on the Blue Wire Network. My name is Varun Shankar. I'm the Wizards reporter for the Washington Post. I had on Jim Coulter of the Wizards Weekly podcast this week, and we first talked about that atrocious loss to the Nets and where the Wizards go from here, what went wrong, all of that. Then we played a game called Real or Not, which very simply looks at early season trends and says, is this real or is this not? Great conversation, but before we get to that, if you haven't yet, please like, rate, review, share, subscribe, anything you can do wherever you watch and listen to this podcast, please do it. Also, a heads up for you, on Friday after the Wizards play the Raptors, I'll be going live on YouTube to recap the game, talk about what I noticed, and take some questions. So make sure to tune in. I'll have more information on my social media. All right, without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Jim. Joining me now on the Everybody Eats podcast is Jim Coulter of Wizards Weekly. Jim, what's up, man?
How's it going, Varun? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. It has been a rough stretch for the Wizards of late, culminating in a game against Brooklyn where, they lost, they gave up a lot of points, they were not happy with their own performance. Brian Keefe talked about how he was disappointed in his team's lack of response to adversity. He talked, the players had a player-only meeting. We'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about all the issues that we saw in that game. Before that, I got to share a big life update. I got a new soundbar for my TV, and I'm going to tell you, man, it has changed my life after listening to basically everything on either headphones or a television that is way too old. I really enjoyed the experience of the soundbar. I'm not going to provide the branding here.
I got a soundbar.
Hey, look at that. Look at that. We won't provide the brands that we're using because unless they're advertising, I'm not giving anyone any free clout, but it's very nice, I will say. I was rewatching Game of Thrones because I'd not found a new TV show, and I got to the scene where, spoiler alert, Tyrion's giving his speech in the
That's my favorite scene.
Yeah, the court, and
So
let me tell
good.
you, you could hear every single word that Peter Dinklage is saying so clearly. So I was like, okay, that was a moment for me. Like, okay, I can tell an actual difference in the way that this is mixed and how it sounds. So it was good. All right, Enough of that. Let's talk about the basketball game. Big picture takeaway. What is the one thing that stands out to you most about that Nets game?
So we can talk about the defense, which I think has been probably the biggest frustration point for me in watching this team so far this season. But if we're talking big picture takeaways, I still think Keyshawn George was the biggest takeaway from that game. He was probably the lone positive from that performance, but man, he is so good. And everything we wanted him to do this offseason, he has done. The self-creation with his strength, his ability to create space in the mid-range, his playmaking for others. I really liked how he was still staying involved as an off-ball scorer in last night's game. He had a couple nice plays off the catch. He's been hitting threes. I have nothing but good things to say about him and his performance so far this year. So really disappointing game. I know I'm frustrated with how the team played in that game, and I think everyone is, but for the Wizards long term, I think Keyshawn George looking the way he has last night and this whole season is still a huge takeaway.
Yeah, Keyshawn was good on offense. I think the defense left a little bit to be desired, as did everyone's play in that
I
game.
agree.
But, the catch and shoot three it is very reassuring to see that he is a good three-point shooter, because that was a huge part of his appeal coming out of Miami. It didn't really show up as a rookie. That very much struck me as adjustment to the NBA, adjustment to NBA length and size, rather than something is wrong with his form, because the three-point form looks good and he's taking them confidently and it's looked good so far. My main takeaway is not Keyshawn George. I think he had 29 points. It was a fantastic outing. My takeaway is the defense, because it's never good when a team has a players-only meeting. It can have good results, but whatever leads you to have a players-only meeting is never good. And that post-game press conference was the second maddest I've ever seen Brian Keefe, I would say. Number one has to be an early season game against the Knicks last season, where he came in. I think he took maybe 2 questions. He was very disappointed in his team. He was very angry with his team, I would say, and then he walked out. He did not do that Sunday against Brooklyn. For context, we are recording Tuesday evening, and this will come out Wednesday. And so, but Keefe was pretty pissed in that post-game press conference. You could tell that, he said that he was disappointed in how his team didn't respond to adversity, how there was some good defensive moments early, but it quickly faded away. And then Keyshawn George speaks after him and tells everyone that the Wizards just had a players-only meeting after Keefe walked out the room. And with an off day in between then and today's practice, Keyshawn was like, guys, it's time for some self-reflection. The coaching staff said that, and I think that was a message in the players-only meeting. From what I and others have gathered, Josh Robbins reported part of this. We also talked to Bilal Coulibaly at practice today. It seems like the people who were talking the most were C.J. McCollum. Marvin Bagley also talked a lot. I'm not sure if Chris Middleton talked, but from what Bilal told Josh in his story, it was very veteran-heavy, and Bilal told us about C.J. Bagley today. So I think that Chris Middleton would probably have also been someone who spoke up at moments. But, man, it's never good when you're having a players-only meeting this early in the season.
For sure. And I'll just be honest, like I'm not surprised that it came to this. I think the defense so far this season and particularly as of late has just been way worse than it should be. I'm not expecting this team to be a great defensive team or anything like that, but the mistakes that get made, especially on the perimeter, and the consistency with which they make these mistakes is alarming. And so I'm not entirely surprised that they had a players only meeting. I mean, there just needs to be more communication and urgency, particularly with like the switching on the perimeter. It just seems like there's so much confusion on so many possessions where, someone's switching when they're not supposed to, and there's two people on the ball, or vice versa, and there's nobody guarding the ball when, there's like a guard to guard screen occurring or something like that. So it's definitely something that needs to get better. And hopefully this is like a turning point. Hopefully they can come out in their next game and show some better execution on that end of the floor.
Yeah, I talked to someone with another team, and I just wanted to kind of run past them. What do you think about a players-only meeting? And obviously this person doesn't know what was said or any of the specifics involved, but they said that it's probably not a great sign that it's happening this early in the season. You're just coming out of training camp. You're just coming out of a point where you think that you have established the principles that you want as a team. It's not ideal that you have to reestablish them so early, but at the same time, it could also be good that players are holding each other accountable, and that one thing that I think is a pretty big concern when you have a extended rebuild like this, an extended tank like this, is the young players that you draft and are trying to develop start to think losing is acceptable. And these are the kinds of conversations that could potentially stave that complacency off. But you talk about the defensive issues, communication is the thing I come back to, because it's so important for defense, and from an outsider looking in, it also feels like something that just say, like, call out a coverage, right? I think it was CJ McCollum who said this after the game, where he was like, any coverage can work as long as you call it out, but if you don't call out a coverage, now no one knows what you're running, and you could see that again and again against Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think the communication issues also show up a lot in transition.
Oh
Like
my
this team
God.
has not been great in transition defense so far, and it's hard to tell sometimes from the broadcast. Like you can't always hear everything that's going on the court, but what I do notice is a lack of pointing
Yeah.
and pointing out matchups to make sure we're not getting scrambled in transition. And that's just something that the players have to take ownership of and do a better job, because it happens far too often where the Wizards aren't getting back in transition defense, and the matchups are getting cross matched, and it leads to a lot of issues. So
Right now, just to put some numbers to that, the Wizards are worst in the league in the additional point per possession they're giving up on transition plays. They are in transition at the 26th lowest or highest rate, I should say, so way too often. And, I posted a tweet thread earlier just going through some of the plays that stood out to me. There's one where the Wizards have matched up pretty well after a defensive rebound. The Nets have 3 guys back, the Wizards have 2 guys all the way on the other end of the court, and you have 3 guys who are up. Bub and Cam Whitmore do not communicate. I think Marvin Bagley's the third guy who's there, and he's supposed to match up with the big. Michael Porter Jr. is running up the right sideline. Cam Whitmore needs to flare out and get there. He doesn't know that Bub Carrington is behind him and is looking to also get the ball handler who's back there. And so both of them stay there. One pass gets up, and now it's a 4-on-2, and it's over, and it leads to a wide-open dunk. And that's the kind of thing that can't happen. The Wizards are already losing the possession battle because they're turning the ball over a lot. They're not forcing a lot of turnovers, and they're going to get out-rebounded because they're a smaller team. You cannot, in addition to that, also give up some free points every single game with something that is as elementary as just getting back in transition, especially if you're not going to counteract that by getting a lot of offensive rebounds. They're not even crashing on that play I'm talking about. The 3 guys back aren't even crashing. They're just standing there.
That was the point I was going to make as well, is that it seems like, why not just crash the glass more if you're going to get beat in transition this often. I mean, there are situations where someone from the Wizards will take a contested jump shot and only Alex Sarr is under the rim. There's just no reason that you should be giving up transition buckets in that situation, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, some other things that stood out to me. We talked to Bilal today at practice, and he talked about how, some guys weren't looking at the scouting report, is kind of what he said. I'm going to read out his quote. It was really bad. I think we didn't watch the scout properly and all that. And that's troubling. And one thing in particular that I pointed out to him, and he was like, yeah, that was a big issue, was how they got beat on backdoor cuts multiple times, and you saw Michael Porter Jr. just feast. And I understand some of the time why this happens, because you are so worried about the threat of him as a movement shooter and coming off a pin down that you could see Keyshawn George just trying to wall him off from that, but then you're just leaving everything wide open. It's either Keyshawn has to be better, or whoever the defender on ball is has to be better, or someone has to come in to help and be cognizant, and there was nothing there.
Yeah. Yeah, they got killed on backdoor cuts last night. And that point about the scouting report is interesting, because I don't want to single out a specific player, but there were times where someone would get switched on to Michael Porter Jr. who wasn't his primary defender, and they would kind of relax for a second and maybe sag off of him. And it's like, you have to know your personnel. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. is one of the best shooters in the league at 6'10".
It's the only thing he can really do.
Yes, and so the point about the scouting reports is interesting.
I don't think that's been a consistent issue from the Wizards this season, but it was one against Brooklyn, and I think that's one of the things that, even beyond the final result, that's probably the thing to me that strikes as, this is why you're having a players-only meeting afterward, and this is why Brian Keefe is not necessarily giving some of the more, hey, it's a long season, we had some good stretches, and he seemed actually displeased after the game, if that makes sense. Bilal's first came back. Did anything stand out to you with him in particular?
I think he's still pretty far away offensively. There were times where I just would like to see him be more aggressive with his shot. I know he's not like a great shooter, but there are just times where he had space last night to shoot the ball, and instead of firing when he had that opening, he just hesitated, and then the defense was able to recover. And in the modern NBA, that's just tough to deal with. I mean, if you get that advantage and you're not able to take advantage of that, it's kind of tough. So I would like to see him just shoot more threes, frankly. If they don't go in, it is what it is. But I don't know. I liked his defense. I thought he was impactful on that end of the floor. I thought he was,
especially early on.
Yeah, I think he was pretty easily the best in terms of guarding the ball. Last night he had some really nice plays. So I think it was kind of more of the same, for better or for worse. So
yeah, with the 3-point shot, he was really confident. I think it was OKC, where he was really confident with the shot. And no, it was against the Knicks. I take it back, because I remember one shot in particular where Josh Hart is closing out on him, and he takes it despite a pretty hard closeout and makes it. And Those are the kinds of things where even if the shot isn't falling, you want to see that same level of confidence continue. We'll see what it looks like. I'm not making any judgments about Bilal Koulibaly yet. It's way too early in his career, but also just this season we haven't seen enough. But it was an interesting first game back from him. All right, let's get to the main question about this episode. Unless you have anything else you want to add about the next game.
I'd like to forget that game. So,
Okay, fair enough. We are playing a game that I am going to call real or not real. Very simple. We're 13 games of the season. What's real? What isn't? These are all relatively educated guesses, obviously. We're trying to project out and see what's sustainable, what isn't. And we're going to each have two of each and try and make the case to the other person, who at the end will have to determine, do we also think this is real or not real? Jim, why don't you go first?
all right, I'll start with one that I think is real. Uh, Keyshawn George's foul trouble. Um, so currently, Keyshawn is leading the league in personal fouls per game at 4.8 a game, which is, I mean, that's almost five fouls a game. Like, you only get six. So that's a lot. The next closest to him is Walker Kessler at 4.4 personal fouls per game, and he's only played 5 games this season, so there might be some small sample size issues there, and that's a pretty big gap between number one and two. Um, the next five names on this list are all bigs. So, because bigs are just, you're going to be contesting more shots, you're going to be around the rim more. You have to get to like number seven on the list to get to another perimeter player before Keyshawn. And even last year, this was a bit of an issue for him. He only played about 26, 27 minutes a game, but was 15th in the league in fouls per game. He averaged three a game last year. So I am going to say this is real. I definitely think this is something Keyshawn can improve on and get rid of and get out of his game. But as of now, this is a real issue, and it has a lot of negative effects for the rest of the defense because number one, I mean, with Bilal missing a lot of time, he's been our best perimeter defender on the roster for a lot of these games. And when he's just consistently getting into foul trouble, he has to get taken off the floor in a lot of instances. But other times they leave him on the floor and just put him on a different player. And then he's not guarding the other team's best player. And that hurts the defense. The other team gets into the bonus a lot easier. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with it. But I would say this is a real issue. So
The concerning thing to me is that, and I guess concern is too strong. He's a young player. He's going to foul. He's playing aggressive. Some of the fouls, especially, there was one against Brooklyn where he just kind of shoves the guy, and
I think it was
you
Noah
could,
Clowney. He just two
yes.
hand shoved him. It's like, come on, man. Yeah.
And so he has played what 12 games so far this year, yeah, and he has had more than four or more fouls in all but one of them. That's tough. It's a tough way to live. And it is coming with some level of defensive production. He's averaging about a steal and about a block per game, which is pretty good. And I think you need to see that go up to justify the amount of fouls he's giving up. And I mean, I can't pinpoint one thing in particular that I say, oh, this is why he's fouling so much. I think he's aggressive with his hands. He's obviously guarding a lot of good players very often, and it seems like at times his foot speed is not up to caliber to guard on the perimeter against some of the better players. And that is where having Bilal is so important. That's the gap between him and Bilal as on-ball defenders.
I mean, I think you nailed it. I think the issue is whenever he feels like he's gotten beat a little bit, instead of just trying to, put his hands up and get a good contest and make it a difficult shot, he's trying to just like steal the ball. And he'll
Hmm.
swipe down at the arms or he'll, grab up top at the ball and try to get a block when it's like sometimes the best thing to do is just to get a decent contest and hope they miss and not foul. And that's a lot of what NBA defense is. So I do think some of it is the foot speed isn't great necessarily, and he does put himself in those positions a lot of times. And then he feels like the need to kind of swipe at the ball and try to get a steal. And you like that because he does make a lot of plays defensively, but there has to be like some level of balance. I mean, I personally think Keyshawn has been the best player on this team so far this year, and just being in constant foul trouble is a pretty big issue. So,
If you can't tell, I think this is real as well. It's going to be a problem that he has to work through and improve
yeah.
on as his career goes on if he wants to be the kind of two-way force that he wants to be and the Wizards want him to be. So it's something to keep watch of. But that strikes me mostly as a function of him being a young player. I do think that's something he will get better at as time goes on, as he gets more respect from officials, and that is a real big thing. Just having kind of the benefit of the doubt in those situations, starting off with a level of physicality was something that talking to players on the Wizards last year and just talking to people around the league, you can tell that you hope that him having that level of aggression early on leads to him getting some more respect from the officials and getting away with some stuff,
Mhm.
honestly. All right,
Yeah.
my first one. Alex Sarr's underlying rim protection numbers are real. Last year, really good blocks. Didn't necessarily see it as much when you were looking at his defended field goal percentage at the rim. This year has not been the case. It has been exceptional. And one of the reasons that I think it's real is because he's already at a pretty decent sample size just because the Wizards allow so many shots at the basket. He has faced 150 defensive he has had 150 defensive field goal attempts inside 6 feet so far this year. For context, he had about, I think, 583 all of last season. And so his defended field goal percentage on such shots has dropped by about 8 percentage points. And if you're looking at players with at least 75 defended shots inside 6 feet, this is all per NBA.com, he has the fourth best defended field goal percentage. And I think the guys above him, I think Rudy was one, Ivica Zubac was another, and then I think it was McDaniels in Minnesota. And you're also seeing, which is really cool with Alex, some level of deterrence where other teams don't want to go to the rim because he's there. Opponents take a little less shots at the rim per cleaning the glass when he's on the court. So you're seeing not only the fact that he is blocking shots, he is impacting shots around the rim, and he is making opponents think twice about going to the rim. All right, what do you think? Real or not?
I think this is real as well. I've been very impressed with his rim protection so far this year. I think he's gotten a lot smarter about what shots to contest
Mm-hmm.
around the rim as well, and I think that's helped him as a rebounder to stay in better position as he doesn't feel like he's trying to block everything that comes, anywhere remotely close to the paint, where it felt like he was trying to do that at times last year. I
To
think
that
he's
point,
gotten a yeah.
defensive
Yeah.
rebounding, he was 37th percentile among big men last year, up to 62nd percentile this year. So a clear
Yeah.
improvement there.
Yeah, and I think he's gotten a lot better in drop coverage as well with some of his positioning and kind of playing that cat and mouse game between the guard and the big and not giving up those lobs where the big is getting behind you. I think he's just done a good job of that and yeah, it seems like all things that a talented young rookie would get better at as his career goes on. Just a lot of the technical aspects of defense and rim protection, I think we've seen improve a lot. I looked at these numbers before the Nets game where he fouled out, so I don't know if this is still the case, but his foul percentage on contests had also gone down a bit this year, which I think is also helping, is he's doing a really good job of not fouling around the basket. So I think there's a lot of stuff he's improved on, and I would agree that this is real.
I was talking about this with Ben Golliver a couple podcasts ago, and Sarr's ability to not foul, and the Nets game was a bad showing for him in that respect, but
Yeah.
overall, he's been good about not fouling and having that rim protection. That's something that could potentially separate him when you're looking at a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., who fouls everything that he sees. And so when we're
Mhm.
looking at the long-term comparisons for Sar, that's an area. Two things you said that stood out to me. One was him recognizing things better. That's something the Wizards have talked about a lot. And you could just see he's able to see the picture coming a little bit clearer and able to make the decision about whether to block, whether to stay down more effectively. And that has been a big help for the Wizards' defensive rebounding. Second thing, and this is something Bilal said at practice today, he's less scared to get dunked on is another
Mm.
change. And so he doesn't care. He's just going to go up and contest a shot no matter what. And he's gotten put on a couple posters this year, but he has also had, and that's just the life of being an elite rim protector, I would say. You have to go up for everything, even if it means that you might get dunked on by, I don't know. I feel like someone in Boston got him, but might be
I
misremembering.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What is your next? You can either do a real or a not real.
I'll do the other reel that I had because it's an Alex Sarr
Okay.
discussion as well. So we'll
So
stay
you're buying
on
the rim
him.
protection though. That's real to you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect.
I'm gonna say that's real. So this is kind of a two-part thing. I kind of cheated here.
Okay.
But I'm gonna just say Alex Sarr's shooting. I'm gonna say the three-point shooting is real. So currently he's at 35% on three attempts per game. His three-point attempts are down from last year. And that's part of the reason I think this is sustainable because he is taking the type of threes that I want him to take and that I think a lot of people wanted to see him take last year, where it's open threes, pick and pops where they're really not guarding you. And his primary scoring option has been inside the paint this year, which has been really good to see. So on this low volume of open threes, I definitely think 35% is sustainable. I think his form looks more consistent this year as well. That's also part of the reason I'm buying this. So, but I also wanted to get your opinion on this because you're around practice more. Like I'm sure you get to see him shoot a lot more than I do. Currently from the mid range, from 10 to 14 feet. Sarr shooting 47.6% on 1.6 attempts per game from that distance. Like that's really good. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm buying that as much yet as I am buying the 3-point percentage. So kind of a two-part discussion, but I wanted to get your opinion on the mid-range stuff and just what you think of his shooting outlook.
So the real is the 3 point percentage, but the mid range
Yeah,
is not
yeah, yeah.
real.
The mid-range is just something I wanted to bring up. Yeah,
He goes to the mid range too much. This is something that
he
I've been
does.
saying. He's continuing to go more to the rim than he did as a rookie. It's still not as high as I think it was. It has gone down over the last bit. He's still finishing really well around the rim. He goes to that fadeaway a bit too much. I think he had some early success with it this season. He's had some pretty good success so far this year too. He's shooting 45% on long mid range shots per cleaning the glass. That's 75th percentile among big men. That's last year. He's also had 45% this year. I don't think it's real, but I'm willing to, unless it stops showing up, I'm going to say, okay. I mean, if you're taking a fadeaway a game and it's going in, no, I take it back. That's not real. What am I saying? Every time Sarr shoots a fadeaway, I cringe, and I think it's a really nice counter, but he goes to it way too much, and it's honestly a pet peeve of mine. Just because he did it last year, it's 44 attempts last season. I'm not going out there. The 3 pointer is real. He is
Okay.
shooting really good ones. He shot open ones last year, but I also think that even if you're shooting open ones as a rookie, sometimes they weren't coming in the rhythm of the offense. He's got a much better feel for the three feels in a lot of ways like an element of last resort for him, right? Where he's doing it a lot more, I feel like late in the shot clock, a lot more when it's a opportunity that would be it would be detrimental to the offense for him to turn it down, and that was not the case last year. So he's also just going to naturally improve as a shooter over time. I think that Sarr is someone who I think 35% is a pretty reasonable mark for him to settle in on this season. I am curious, do you think there's upside for him to go a little bit more?
I don't know. I think I would I would lean probably not, just because I feel like he still has some really bad misses at times.
Yeah.
And I do feel like with some of the better shooters in the league, like their misses are usually closer than some of the ones that he has. So I don't know about the volume that he can achieve. He did hit a nice like off the dribble three. I forget which game it was. It was off
I
like an
remember which one.
inverted ball screen and
Dude,
yeah, I mean so
that was
maybe there is.
nuts.
I don't know. Yeah. Um
That play, I am. I thought we might see a little bit more inverted ball screens with Alex this year, and I'm a little
I
surprised that
agree.
hasn't been more a part of the offense. I'm interested by it. I don't think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna work. I think last year he tried to do it once in one game, and it was like an automatic turnover. But I think he could do some stuff. Get him moving downhill with the head of steam. Get him with like a Trey screening for him, just because of the shooting ability
Mhm.
and what that could pull. Corey screening for him. I think if you
Yeah.
do Keyshawn screening for him, that probably gets you to like they'll probably just switch that.
Mhm.
Would they switch that with Trey? No, not with Trey. Definitely
No,
not.
that's right.
But with Corey,
They did
depending on
the
who's guarding him, maybe.
They did run those at times last year, especially towards the end of the season with Poole as the screener, and I remember him being pretty effective, and especially with the leap that Sarr has taken this year as an offensive player, I would like to see that some more. Um,
I am
yeah, I think
interested.
the off the dribble shooting, both from three and the mid range, like if that stuff can be real with Sarr, then I mean I might have to adjust my ceiling for what I think he is as a player because that could get scary. But the current diet of threes he's taking, I absolutely think is sustainable at 35% a game. So
With the mid range, I'm joking about the fadeaways. I think that it is a good counter for him to get to, but if he's able to hit those kinds of shots regularly, and I don't think that it's improbable, some of Sar's shots are just going to look a little bit tougher because he's able to use his length
mhm.
as separation rather than like physical separation, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so he's able to see over most players. He's able to shoot over most players. It's something I talk about with Trey Johnson, and so it's something that obviously applies to Sar with I don't know, 7'4" wingspan or something ridiculous. And so
Yeah.
that will give him some level of ability. I don't think the fadeaway though. Like even if he's just rising up, I could see some level of
Mhm.
improvement there. But I do think that I don't think he's going to shoot this well on long twos.
Yeah. I think last point on that, like the way I think he likes to attack is more from the face up rather than, backing you down like from the low post. And so I think he's pretty decent as a driver out of those face up situations. If he can also be close to a 50% shooter from the mid range out of those situations, I do think we could see like some really fun self-creation stuff from him that is starting to show this year. And if it can be consistent, then I think that could be a real weapon for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, his the percentage of his shots that are assisted has gone down ever so slightly. He's still getting assisted on the majority of his plays, which makes sense. He's a big man. That's just how it works. He's not going to handle the ball that much. But I am curious to see if he is I don't know, able to do a little bit more off the dribble. I've liked some of the early flashes I've seen from him working from the top of the key as a passer. I am curious to see if there's anything more for him to kind of reject that option, reject the handoff, and blow by guys because he like his first step looks much improved. But okay,
Yeah, for
next
sure.
up for me, let's do another reel with Bilal, Sar, and Keyshawn George on the court. This is a small sample size, obviously, because Bilal has not played as much, but these are the three, I'd say, best defensive players on the Wizards by a decent margin. The Wizards have a 117.7 defensive rating. That would be good for the if that was a team's mark, that would be the 21st best mark in the league. That's decent. Remember, you're grading on a curve because the Wizards are the second worst defense in the league right now. So if you're just even mediocre, if you're Sar, Bilal, and Keyshawn on the court, that is pretty encouraging based on what they're showing. Now here is a caveat with that, and why I am saying this is real, but this is the biggest reason this could not be real. That's heavily influenced by good 3-point luck. If you adjust for that 3-point luck, which Data Baller allows you to do, that defensive rating number jumps to 131.7, which is the worst in the league by a mile. Despite that, I believe they're allowing a lot of shots at the rim. They're not allowing that many threes, and they're allowing a lot of mid range shots. Some of these shots coming at the rim, I think, are more of a function of the guys who are playing around them. Usually, those three are playing alongside the starting lineup of Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum. They're both those players. Chris Middleton makes the opponent's shooting frequency at the rim go up. Keyshawn makes it go down. CJ makes it go up. Bilal makes it go up a little bit. I'm thinking that's a small sample size thing. And then Sar makes it go down, like we talked about. I think that they have been really good in transition, actually, which has obviously been an issue for the rest of the Wizards. They limit opportunities off offensive rebounds. They are horrible off steals, but I think that's more of a function of being put in disadvantageous situations because of the steal. They are not forcing turnovers right now, and I think that is something where they are going to get better as Bilal gets more comfortable, as Keyshawn gets the secondary defensive matchup, if that makes sense, right when Bilal is guarding the primary, and you're going to see that interplay working a little bit better, and hopefully forcing more turnovers for the Wizards' sake. And so I think that I don't know if 21st might be a little ambitious, but I do think that they will be in the upper 20s.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do think this is real. It is curious that a lot of I think Bilal is a very, very good defensive player. I would assume that you agree. I think most people
On the ball,
would
yes.
would say
Off
that,
the ball,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
okay.
Okay, because I was looking at this the other day, and with Bilal off the floor this season, the defensive rating um, was 122.9, and
Ouch.
with him on the floor, it jumps to 132.7 so far this year. Now he hasn't
I
played
don't
that
buy
many
it.
minutes. I don't buy that either. But so I don't know exactly
Individual
what to make of
defensive
all
rating
this.
is totally
Yeah,
skewed. It like there's four other
I
guys on
agree.
the court. Defense is a weak
I
link
agree.
thing in the NBA right now, and so all of
Yeah,
that which is why I'm not doing this with individual players. I want to do this with the like
with a
3-man
group.
groups
Yeah,
and see what that lineup looks like. But I
for
think that
sure.
with those three guys on the court, you're gonna see better results more often than not.
Yeah.
If you don't see that, it's a pretty. I think that becomes a troubling sign for the Wizards. I would say.
Yeah, I think some of that too, though. I mean, you mentioned it. Like, teams are so smart now at hunting whoever your weakest link is on the floor. And with the roster for the Wizards right now, you're pretty much always going to have at least one or two
Oh yeah.
players that teams feel comfortable attacking. So I think that trio can make up for that in some respects. But if the defensive rating with those three on the floor doesn't look great at the end of the season, I'm still not gonna panic just because I mean defense is very much like a team, system, and the team currently is not constructed well enough to defend. So
It's
I don't
not
know.
panic, but I do think there's some degree of concern where I that makes this next season really, really crucial for them to establish themselves. The organization wants to see when those guys are on the court, and not just those guys, but other ones too. But those three in particular, I think, are the furthest ahead on defense right now at this point in their careers. The Wizards want to see those guys look good on the court and have some positive defensive results with them out there. The turnover thing is most interesting to me. They have not been able to force turnovers at all this season. The deflections have gone up a little bit more of late. I don't. I think that's something that could get better with Bilal back, but I mean, that's something where you staked your identity in the preseason as wanting to be a team that forced turnovers, and it just hasn't happened yet. And Brian Keefe will say there's been pockets of games where that happens, but I don't know. I don't see it.
I I think I might be able to explain the turnover thing.
Okay.
If you look at this team, I think they're not the most athletic in terms of their straight line athleticism. And this isn't even specific to some of the older players on the roster. Like, obviously Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum are a little bit past their athletic primes, but even a lot of the guys this front office has drafted in Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, who I think is a good defender, but I wouldn't say straight line athleticism is his
Sure.
main strength. And a lot of that is like getting out in the passing lanes and when you're in scramble situations, like being able to rotate and fly around the court and get turnovers. Like I wouldn't say this team is great at that. So maybe that's a reason for the turnovers is just a lack of athleticism and ground coverage as a team, even though like individual players like Bilal and Alex are really athletic for their positions.
Yeah. I feel
Maybe. I
like
don't know.
funneling shots inside and having Sar there as some level of deterrent, you should be able to get some kickouts and because you don't have to help as much with Alex there, I don't know.
I
They're
agree.
not like their
I agree.
rotations have been a hair late at times. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, they well, that's something that needs to get better as the season goes along. It might not, but I think they're the worst in the league right now in forced turnover percentage, and that's not good enough.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with my first not real. 10 players are playing at least 10 minutes per game for the Wizards. That's not going to continue. And you're going to see Will Dawkins was on the Sports Junkies this morning, and he said, that the rotation is going to shrink a little bit as games go on. You saw Will Riley go down to the G League, and he's played pretty well there. Jamir Watkins has also, I think, been in the G League for a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw someone like AJ Johnson spend a couple games in the G League just because he hasn't gotten minutes so far. Last year, you saw Brian Keefe often run with an 8 to 9 man rotation. So here are the guys we know will get minutes if the team is healthy or until they are blatantly tanking. Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly, CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton. That's 7 players. You have 2 more spots. Who are the players that you put there?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Can you repeat those players? Um,
Yes. Keyshawn, Alex, Bub, Trey, Bilal, CJ, Chris. Who are the other
okay.
2? You
I
need
mean,
a backup center.
someone
Spoiler
has to
alert.
play backup big.
Yeah.
uh, I'll go Bagley
Yeah.
and Kispert.
I
I
think
think
that's
those
the
would be my
answer.
2. Yeah.
So now here's what gets interesting because now Cam Whitmore is out of the rotation.
Yep. I don't know. I might disagree with you on this one. I think Cam Whitmore is going to continue to get minutes. I think they want to find minutes for Justin Champagnie as well. I mean, that's
They
11
should. He's
players
really
though. That's a
good.
lot. Yeah,
That's what I'm
I like
saying,
Justin
right?
Champagnie.
And
Yeah.
and I think you're
Yeah.
gonna see some rest days for Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum intermix.
Mhm.
Middleton has gotten some. I don't think McCollum has had any so far this year, which I find kind of interesting because they did it with both Middleton and Smart late last season. But I don't know, man. I mean, rotation is rotation. There's only so many players you can find minutes for. I don't know where the minutes are for one of Whitmore, Kispert, and Champagne. More than one of them. 2 of them are going to be
Right.
sitting on the bench for lots of games. And
Right.
injuries are going to happen. You're going to have players, roles are going to open up. But still, I
Mhm.
struggle to see it.
What's funny is I actually think Justin Champagnie could help the Wizards a
I
lot
agree.
more than some of the players that I think are firmly in the rotation. But um, yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, I don't disagree with any of the 7 you named as for sure, definitely getting rotation minutes. I mean, they didn't invest a ton in Cam Whitmore, so
2 seconds.
yeah, I guess I could see that, but I actually think he's looked a little better recently, so I don't know. I wouldn't mind. See, I liked his game against the Pistons mainly, and that was only a couple games ago. But I wouldn't mind just continuing with that experiment for the rest of the season. Kispert's interesting because I actually a lot of the fans get mad at Kispert. I actually think he helps them when he's out there, and
He's a very good player.
yeah, he's especially offensively. Like he can attack closeouts. He has a lot of shooting gravity. He opens up the floor for other players. I think he's a useful player to have out there, and I don't think they would just cut his minutes. So yeah, I don't know. And then someone's got to play backup big. So yeah, I don't know.
With Kispert on the floor, the Wizards are 13.3 points per 100 possessions better.
Yeah, I
He's
mean
a good
it.
player.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we have to
I
debate it.
tend to agree.
Yeah.
I, do you think there's any chance they would just run like a no center type of lineup with because you see some teams do this around the league.
I mean, they've done it at
They did,
moments, right?
yeah. I mean, against the Nets, the Wizards ran a lineup of, I guess, Champagnie or Bilal you could call as the center, but it was no Sar, no Bagley, no Vucevic. Like, I wonder if that's something they do instead if they'd like to get minutes for Champagnie and I don't know. At least you could be active and switch everything in a lineup like that.
Yeah. Hmm. It's weird because with
Five
the
out
starting
spacing,
lineup,
maybe.
honestly,
I don't know.
yeah, honestly, I mean, kind of do. I mean, I am very excited to watch Miami play the Wizards because
Mhm.
I really enjoyed watching them in the early season. Speaking of 5 out spacing, yeah, I don't know. Are you going? Do you think this is not real? You think we're still gonna have a 10-man rotation for the Wizards?
I do.
Hmm.
I think I would just disagree with the Cam Whitmore thing. I just think they're gonna give him the rest of the year to try and figure it out. He is a player that has a lot of physical talent, and
Oh yeah.
you might as well just kind of see what he has for the rest of the season. So I do think they'll run a 10-man rotation and maybe occasionally throw in Champagny, so call it a 10.5-man rotation. But I mean, I do think shrinking the rotation could help them be a little bit more competitive in some of these games, and I do think that's something the Wizards should prioritize as they're on this huge losing streak, just for morale
Yeah,
purposes
you
and
don't want to lose too like you want to lose a
yeah,
lot of games,
yeah,
especially because there are a lot of teams who are coming down to the bottom of the standings this year, and so you don't want to win too much. But I do think that you also don't want to bludgeon the players with 17 game losing streaks, which I think they
agreed.
had two 16 game losing streaks last year. What a team! All right, what's your first not real?
All right. I'm gonna go with Bub Carrington's 2-point scoring so far this
Okay,
season.
okay.
I do not think this is going to continue at this bad of a rate. So
Can I guess
currently,
what he's shooting on twos?
oh God. Yeah, you can guess. I don't think you're
This
gonna
is
get it.
this is cheating because I was definitely looking at his cleaning the glass page a lot earlier today, but I don't remember the specific number. I'm gonna say 31% on twos. Good
Uh
lord, is it lower?
oh yeah, yeah. Way lower.
Oh god.
23.9% so far on
Ah.
2-point shots.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a tough start to the
Where does
year.
that rank in the league? That's
Um,
got to be the worst.
I mean, I can't imagine it's not. If you
Why do
can
you
pull
think
that
he's
up,
been
I'm
there?
interested to know.
Why do you think he's been, you know, quite so struggling, and why do you think it's going to improve? I assume you think it's going to improve. It can't get much lower.
Yes, yes. No, that I actually I don't really have an explanation for it, and that's part of the reason I am including this in the not real section, just
Okay.
because we always talk about Bub not being able to get to the rim, and that is a big issue for him. But he didn't get to the rim much last year, and he shot 47.5% on 2-point shots last season. Uh, Per NBA.com, last year from 10 to 14 feet, he shot 54.5% on those shots, which is an incredible mark. SGA, just for comparison, shot 54.1% from that same range, obviously on more volume, but just to kind of contextualize how good that number is. What do you think he's shooting this season on shots from 10 to 14 feet?
22%.
18.2%.
Jesus.
So, I mean, even going back to college, he shot 50% on long twos. So I do
Yeah.
not think this is going to continue. I do think it will get better. And just, there's not a whole lot of Bub Carrington optimism out there right now, but he is shooting 43.6% so far from three this season. And if we can see these numbers from his 2-point jumpers, I'm not even talking about the at the rim stuff. But if he can get back to the 2-point jump shooter he was last year with this new and improved 3-point percentage, if it stays, we could be looking at something
It's going to
here.
look a lot
So,
better.
yeah,
Bub
I
is looking
I
a
can't
lot
even
worse right now. He's going to look a lot better as the season goes on. How much better? I don't know, but he's going to look better.
yeah, yeah.
The
I can't even explain the drop off in the mid-range shooting. I don't
I
really
think he's
know. I
taking
think
different types of mid-range shots. I think that
yeah.
the Wizards, they're a pretty they're like most teams in how analytically inclined they are in the sense that they don't want to be taking a ton of mid-range shots, and that was a big
Mm,
part of Bub's game last year. And I think this year Brian Keefe said this in a recent press conference where that's not a bad shot at the end of the shot clock after you exhausted all options, right? And so that's something where he's taking a lot more of those short mid-range shots, which is like 4 to 14 feet, I want to say. So
mm,
I think that also groups in some of those like scoop layups he tries or shots, honestly, where he's trying to get inside and into the paint, and he's in the paint, but he's not
mm,
strong enough and not able to get to like at the rim, essentially. So he's taking,
mm.
fade away jump shots over really big players. And I think that's why you're seeing some of that 2-point percentage issues, but he has looked a lot worse this year than on twos than he will for the rest of it.
Yeah, I don't see any shot that continues. I mean,
He's
I
third
do
worst in the league
agree.
on 2-point percentage, by the way. Do you want to guess who the
Okay.
two players below him are?
Oh God. Um,
This would be an insane
I mean,
pool if
is
you
there like a minutes restriction here at all, or
No, but both these guys have played at least
okay?
100 minutes.
Um, I don't even want to say. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to guess
It's
someone.
Sam Hauser is second worst
Okay, that
and
was not
worst
going to be
all
my
time,
guess.
and this is sad. Chris Paul.
Oh no,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
it's a tough
sad.
one.
That
That's a
was one of
tough
my
one.
favorite players. He was one of my favorite players growing up. So
What are you gonna do? Time comes
that's
for us
tough.
all. All right, I also have. I'm gonna say you are correct that his 2 point percentage is not real. It's not gonna stay that low. Mine. I also have a bub stat. He has a
Okay.
22.5% turnover percentage per cleaning the glass. That is not good. It is also substantially higher than where he was as a rookie. And let me pull that up because I did not write that down. He's in the 0th percentile among point guards right now. Again, not very good. And it is here we go. It is a 9 percentage point jump from where he was last season. So last year, his turnover rate was at about 13.7%. This year, 22.7%. So he is turning the ball over on 9% more possessions than he did last year. Some of this is just bad luck, I'm going to be honest. And some of it is just a guy who's trying to drive and make plays. And I think at times he's speeding himself up. And I think sometimes he's just like thinking a little bit too much when he's out there. So I was watching his turnovers from the Dallas game. First one of the game. Inbounds pass to him, bounces off his hands, goes to the backcourt violation. It's just bad luck. Like that's just
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it, right? There is an overambitious entry pass where Keyshawn George has a smaller player on him. I think it's Max Christie. Bub tries to loft it over, doesn't get the pass high enough. Christie picks it off. He tries to drive inside, and another defender, like a defender, stunts at him and kind of pokes the ball away. He forces a lob pass. He forces a skip pass to the corner. Now, those two plays are very interesting because on the first, the weak side defender comes in and takes away the lob, but Bub still throws the lob. Next time, I don't know how far apart these two plays were, but the next time, the weak side defender does not come in and the lob is kind of there, but Bub is I potentially think that he's just kind of thinking about the mistake he just made and trying to correct it, and whips the cross court, skip pass, and it's just not there at all. And he honestly should have probably thrown the lob. So in Detroit, there's a pass that goes off Cam Whitmore's hands. There's a late and overambitious full court press. Do you remember that? He grabs a rebound or something, and he's like basically falling back and almost about to fall out of bounds underneath his own basket. And you could see him think about throwing this pass, pause, and then he throws it anyway, and you're late, and there's no chance. He tries going full court to Keyshawn George, no chance, picked off. Those are things that I think, testing things out a little bit. I think he's just trying to make a play he so badly wants to make a play that he's throwing the ball away. And I think that as he gets more comfortable and a little bit more settled into the season, you'll see that get better. He talked today at practice about how he's trying to be more technical in how he plays. So, for example, last year he was just trying to be the best basketball player out there, and then this year he's trying to be better about filling a role, being the best point guard when the team needs a point guard, and so on and so forth. And I think at times you can see his head spinning as he tries to navigate that.
Yeah, I think the the emphasis for him to try and get to the rim, like he even talked about it in the off season as something that he wanted to improve on. I do think he is kind of forcing it at times where he's just really trying to prove like I can get to the rim and I can
Mm.
finish. There have been a couple times where he's been on, kind of in the middle of the floor and rejected a ball screen at the top, but he's then drove into the side where there is a player both on the wings and in the corner for the Wizards. And so there's no real gap to drive in. There's no space for that player on the wing to relocate to the corner. And it's like he didn't really try to make those plays last year. Like he was generally pretty safe with the ball, especially for a rookie guard. And so I do think he's a little sped up. I don't think he's seeing the floor quite as well. I also think when he has gotten downhill, either, off a ball screen or, without a screen, he has like struggled to finish at the rim. And I think he's getting into the paint and then not necessarily having an angle to finish, and then sometimes trying to make a lob or trying to make a skip pass when it's not there. And I think if he could play off of 2 feet a little bit more, I think that would help him not get in those situations where you have to shoot or you have to pass. You can be on 2 feet, you can pivot, you can ball fake, you can do a lot of different things. So, yeah, I think some of the emphasis to try and drive has caused issues for him with his turnovers. I mean, he had two
Which is
point,
okay. Which is
yeah,
okay
yeah,
because
yeah,
he is 20 years old, right? And
right,
you have to try and do these things to get better. If last year was
for
just
sure.
last year, a lot of for the Wizards rookies, like you're just trying to make sure you're not like getting destroyed on every single play. Right? This year,
Yeah.
there's like, and they were trying to work on things throughout last season, but now you had an off season of work to try and really hone in on the parts of your games that were weak and how to make your game more analytically efficient and how to make your game just better overall. And that requires trying new things. And that process has been much more difficult for Bub than it has been for Keyshawn and Alex early on. And you're seeing the opposite side of what happens when you're asked to do new things and you're maybe not ready to do them yet, or you're not doing them at least. That doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that it's wrong that he's trying. That's the only way he's going to learn. Will he learn? Will he get better? Who knows? I don't know. But the fact that he's trying them and that he's continuing to buy into what the coaches have asked him to do is encouraging.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, going back to last season, Bub had a 2.58 assist to turnover ratio, which was, I mean, that's impressive for a
Mm-hmm.
teenage rookie guard in the NBA. So I do still like think his decision making can be good, but I don't think it has been as good this year. And maybe that is him trying to do different things with his game and getting out of his comfort zone.
He has such an advantage inherently just because the threat of his pull up three is already something teams around the league have to respect. And because of that, he's got guys going over when he's running ball screens. And now you got a guy chasing you, right? And that automatically gives you some level of advantage. When we talk about advantage creation, he's able to create that initial advantage. It's just about continuing it from there and pressing it forward, making that defender who's probably going to be in a drop consider, is he going to go for the layup? Is he going to go for like a floater off the glass? Like, do I have to come out to block? Oh man, you just lobbed it over my head. And when he's able to get the center to commit, it looks great. When he
Yep.
isn't, that's where he gets in trouble because now he has to try and finish through contact, and he just has not done that well. And that's something that,
Hmm.
until he's able to do it, you might see more defenders commit to Bagley on the roll. And now you got to put yourself in a position where you have to test them. You have to make them think again and again that you're going to go for that shot fake. All
Yeah,
right. Do you have another one?
I do. All right. So this is
Wait,
my
so
last.
you think the turnover percentage is not real as well?
Oh, I'll go with not real. That's really high. I think that'll come
Yeah.
down. Even if
I,
it's up a little bit from last year, that's really bad. I'm gonna say not real. I'll agree with you there.
there we go.
All right. My last not real is gonna be the Wizards' defensive rebounding. So the Wizards are currently 21st in the league in defensive rebound percentage, which is still not great, but I think this team will finish in the bottom five in terms of defensive
Oof.
rebounding. We, they were there last season as well, and I did mention Sarr's improvement as a rebounder. I do think that is real. This is more of it's not necessarily a SAR conversation. This is more of a roster construction conversation I wanted to have. Like the backup big situation currently for the Wizards, I just see no shot that this does not finish in the bottom five. And I think this is a product of some early season small sample size stuff.
Marvin Bagley's been a pretty good defensive rebounder at points throughout his career. I mean, 21-22 in Sacramento. He only played for 30 games, but 78 percentile among big men. And you saw that be something he was decent at earlier in his career. It has not been the case so far. I am curious if, I don't know. I think he's got the leaping ability. He's got the strength. He does not have the height. He's listed at 6'11". I think that's probably a little bit generous. But I don't. He's a great offensive rebounder.
Yeah.
But ooh, that's a
And
tough
then
one.
yeah, I mean, and then the roster as a whole as well is just
You're
a
playing a
lot
lot of
of
small lineups. Oh yeah.
yeah, and they don't have any real double big lineups that they go to at any point. I don't know if Sar has shared the floor with Bagley or Vucevic.
He shared it
I
with
think Sar
Vucevic
and
for a bit.
Vucevic played, yeah, like a couple minutes together, but we've seen teams around the league prioritize the double bigs and offensive rebounding. And I don't know, when I was looking at the Wizards kind of team numbers, I was frankly shocked to not see them down towards the bottom of defensive rebounding. So I'm
Hmm. I don't know if I agree or not with this one. It's a tough.
okay.
I think you're probably right. Just because young teams, skinny teams, smaller teams are going to be bad on the defensive boards. And with most things with the Wizards, especially team-wide stats, it's probably a good bet to assume they're going to go worse as the season goes on. Although I do think they currently have the worst point differential of any team all time. That
I
cannot
did.
sustain it. I do
Oh,
not think that will sustain it. But other than that, I think you're not gonna go broke betting against the Wizards, unfortunately. All
yeah.
right.
This is something I wanted to ask you too, real quick. What do you think the team's philosophy is on the kind of double big trend that we've seen? Is that something they want to do long term? And this is kind of more of a short term roster construction issue, or do you think the team would like to play with just a single big and, a couple guards and wings surrounding him long term? Or
Yeah.
I
So
don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Sarr has exclusively been playing as a center. There were
Mhm.
points early last season where I thought they would play him alongside Jonas Valanciunas. I think the shooting was just not at a point where that was
Yeah.
feasible at all. You look at, I mean, the obvious comparison is obviously going to be Oklahoma City, right? And what they did with Chet and what the Cavaliers have done with Evan Mobley, I think, are two places that I look to. Both of them surrounded them with centers. Mobley had Jared Allen, and Holmgren has Hardenstein.
Mhm.
The Wizards have not followed that same trend. I do wonder if that changes as they become, or if they become, more competitive over time. Sar's gifts are best at the five, though. He is so much faster than fives, and he's not a particularly strong player, so putting him against a four does not get you as much of an advantage as you like. Although, if you try and guard him with the wing, he has shown some willingness to go in and kind of bully the guy, so it's not nothing. But oh, that's a tough one. I think you could see them go to a double big at some point in the future. Maybe that's where I don't think that they'll spend real resources on it yet, but it has made sense to me that they have tried to start Alex out as a five primarily because it's easier to get someone to go from playing the five to playing the four than playing the four to playing the five, as we've seen with numerous examples of big men who should probably play center and don't want to.
Yeah. No, I agree that Sar is best as a five long term, especially with the rebounding coming along the way it has this year. I do think with the way teams are building their rosters around the league, I think you kind of have to have at least a double big
Yeah.
look that you can go to, and they don't really have
I mean,
that
I
right
like
now.
him and
So,
Tristan together, right? I mean,
I
that
would
gives
like to
you.
see that more, frankly.
I would
Yeah.
like to see that more too. And
Yeah.
Tristan is. Defense is an adventure for Tristan, and I understand why he does not play more. But he's a very fun player, and I really like the flashes that I've seen. I want to see what the big to big passing can look like because I think Sar has shown himself to be a pretty good passer this year, and I think that
Yeah.
Tristan draws defensive attention because of his shooting ability, and I would be curious to see how they could exploit that. Yeah, but I would be curious. I have not checked on those lineups, and they've played very small amounts. But I would be curious what the
Yeah, it's
rebounding
been
looks like with those lineups.
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right, we went all over the place with that one. Where can people find your work, Jim?
You can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen. It's Wizards Weekly. Just look it up and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. Thanks for having me on, Varun.
Thank you so much to Jim for coming on. Really appreciate his insight on the Wizards. If you haven't yet, please like, rate, share, view, or subscribe based on wherever you watch or listen. You can follow me at Varun Shankar on basically every social media platform. You can find the show using the handles in the episode description. Reminder, live show Friday. I'll see you guys then.